you either have a degree that opens doors for you, or you come from a family with a name that opens doors for you, or you create a name for yourself that'll open doors for you.
Okay.
But if you create a name for yourself that opens doors for you, you're going to have an arsenal of knowledge and equipment. So I said, okay, let me get the knowledge and the equipment and back my name up. So that when people hear the name, they identify it with something of value.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, champions. Welcome back. And this is exciting. It's season 2 of Chpter Champions podcast, where we get to share amazing stories of amazing entrepreneurs who've built brands in Kenya and beyond. And today we're very excited, joined by Mark as usual to host the one and only Ted Josiah. Thank you so much for making time for us
Asante.
today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we can't wait to hear your inspiring story. I mean, Ted is a legendary music producer. He's been credited with creating some of the biggest acts that we know in Kenya today, the likes of Gidi Gidi Maji Maji, Nazizi, Waire Nameless, to mention just a few. But today we're talking about, fashion, e-commerce, his brand JokaJok. It's a luxury fashion brand. He does some of the best bags you'll ever see. And today we'll hear more about them. So
Great.
Ted,
Yeah.
what's up?
I'm good, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, nice to meet you
Yeah,
as well.
let's rock and roll.
Yeah. Awesome. So we'll start with our usual question, which is, who is Ted?
Ted is a creative geek. When I say that, normally people get thrown off and they think geek. Geek is such a bad word, but I like to tinker. I've always loved to tinker, and when you tinker, you're exploring, and when you're exploring, you're figuring out newfound lands and newfound things. You remember when you were a kid when you went into a space that you had never been before, you know, or found a stick and made it into something, and your imagination started to run wild.
Yes.
I try to retain that part of me as much as possible, because I believe that that is the part that births amazing ideas. They're not always amazing. Sometimes they're quirky and crazy and they don't work. But out of 100 quirky, crazy things, you might get 10 that are nice and people latch onto. So that's why I call myself a creative geek. I love to create stuff.
Wow, I think that's very well put. There's a book I was reading actually this week. It's called The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. And he talks about how important it is to find your higher purpose. And the first place to begin is to see how you were in your childhood and things you were drawn to. But then you're lucky if you can actually be able to draw to your childhood. For some people, you can actually realize what you're really drawn to much later. So for you now as a tinkerer and a creative geek, when can you say you sort of knew this is what I love, or this is something I can explore as my higher purpose or something?
I think I was one of the lucky ones. I figured this out way early in my life. I must have been 3 or 4 years old.
Wow. Okay.
I always loved music. I always loved sound. I always would get in trouble with my dad because he would tell me not to touch the radio and that whole record player and everything. And bro, I can't help myself.
Yeah.
I go, I touch it, I figure out how the needle works, figure out how is the speaker connected and all of that. And even sometimes they'd send me shags.
Okay.
Too. So
Okay.
I grew up a lot on a farm.
Okay.
And I would be there cutting napier grass. I'm with a panga. In my head, I finished cutting the napier grass. I'm in concert with my panga playing a guitar.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm singing my heart out.
Oh gosh.
And all of these things, what happened was they started to vibrate within me that, you know what, maybe this can actually be a career. Maybe you're being drawn to these things, not accidentally, but by intentionally, by higher powers than you. And then in my teens, I was a danderhead, bro.
Okay.
Not intelligent, especially at triple maths in the afternoon or triple agriculture. Me, I'd fall asleep.
3 hours of math.
You
Bro.
were danderhead in school.
Yeah. So what would happen is my mind would wander. I would always find my mind just taking off from this thing. And then my folks realized this guy, maybe he needs to go to a school that offers art.
Okay.
Because he's more in the creatives and not in the sciences.
Okay.
Thank God they realized that early. Because then I know I wasn't supposed to do this, but from Form 2 to Form 6, I spent 90% of my time in school in the art room.
Wow.
I would greet the math teacher as she walked in. I would say, no hard feelings. You know me. You know I'm going to fail. I'm going over there to the art room. I'm not running away from school. Let me go and apply myself in a place where I know I can apply myself well. And
they allowed you to do that?
No. I was just hard-headed.
Hard-headed.
But they also realized that, you know, this kid, that's just how he is, and he's actually excelling. By third form, I entered a competition, and art competition, and I beat guys in university.
Wow.
So the whole school realized this guy is kind of unique, you know. Let him because he's representing the school well. Not that he's abandoning lessons to go and smoke weed or what. Mi nilikuwa isili brother, so bangi ilikuwa ni kama staple diet kwetu. Sikuwa navuta, nilikuwa nainusa tu. But I would go to like the art room, and I would just push myself. History class, I excelled. Geography, I excelled. And all of these things were things that I enjoyed, you know, the history of the world, the history of Africa, socialism, you know, all of those things the arts, they help define who I am today and my thought process.
I'm very curious because I studied art and design actually in high school. What form of art were you really good at? What did you enjoy?
It depends on what phase of my life I was in. In high school, I was very good at design. I actually ended up leaving high school, and by the time I left high school, literally a month later, I was working as a graphic designer.
Nice.
Wow.
Literally 1 month later.
Wow.
I hadn't even gone to college or uni or anything. Somebody saw my work at a bookshop and looked for me and employed me as a graphic designer.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, wow, you know.
But did you have this moment where like you didn't even know it was called graphic design? You were like just like
actually I didn't. I thought it was art, you know, because back in the day they didn't label it as graphic design. What it was is you're in the art room doing this is package design, this is still life, this is sculpture, this is what, and I excelled at all of them.
Painting, drawing, everything.
I excelled at all of them, and I would have chosen a career in any of those things, and I believe I would have excelled. Backstory: there's a guy who supplies Java with paintings, and he was my classmate, and I used to whoop him in class.
Oh my gosh.
And nowadays I look at those pieces of art and I'm like,
yeah, they're beautiful.
Maybe I should have done
yes.
Anyway.
and just a detour. And we'll go back to the Tesh's question of what various forms of art were you good in. But like with what you know now, if you were to go back, sort of like what path would you take given your talents?
To be honest with you, I think that I wouldn't change anything, but what I was drawn to very early on was fashion design.
Okay.
Very early on, I was drawn to fashion design. But because LGBTQ was still frowned upon,
Yeah.
and if you said you wanted to be a fashion designer, people would look at you like, bro,
Certain
Are
way.
you?
Yeah. It's
yeah,
like-
na unavaa perfume brother, unanuka sana, unafaa unuke jasho, you know. Can you guys understand Sheng? Or shall I keep it English?
Yes.
Let's try.
Let's try.
Okay, I'll keep it grammatically correct, and yeah. So I enjoyed fashion design, but I just put it like in the back burner until
Okay.
about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
6 years ago when I launched JokaJok.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I have all this knowledge and I can make all of these garments and bags and things.
Yeah.
I might as well take a chance before I die.
So,
Yeah.
So it's great that you went back to doing what you'd have probably done initially. That's really cool. So you finish your high school, you started with graphic design.
Yes.
Then what was the evolution into music? And
it was interesting. I get bored very quick. Nowadays I try to call myself for meetings when I realize I'm getting bored. But what happened for me was, as soon as I finished high school, I went into graphics, and then I went to Kenya Poly and studied graphic design. Finished that, and my final exam, my lecturer, I was working as a graphic designer. My lecturer looked at my piece of work and started questioning it. And I questioned him back, and he took offense to that. And I was like, bro, no, you are wrong. I'm right. You are a lecturer. You don't work as a graphic designer. What I've put there is a piece of work that I could justify to a client, not to you, a lecturer.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
the real world.
Yeah, in the real world. I'm coming from and he took serious offense to it. And I thought to myself, if this is the life I'm going to live, I don't want it. And I was a born again Christian at the time, playing instruments in church and learning how to play them. And I realized I'm enjoying this a whole lot more than I'm enjoying graphics. And back to my childhood, this is drawing upon a passion that I had. I used to go to record stores with my dad and buy records like Akina Bob Marley and Miriam Makeba, all of those classics, Taboo, and my dad would be listening to them and I'd be listening to them and I'd be wondering, how did they make this music? So when I went to church and I had an opportunity to start playing piano and drums and stuff, I'm self-taught. I just figured some stuff out, and it was in the 90s. In the 90s, there was no computer to make music. There were computers for gaming. So the first computer that I remember somebody gifted me was an Atari 1040 STE.
Atari, my
Now,
gosh.
Atari,
Yeah.
there were no UPSs. Okay? So the Atari enabled you to create a sequence of music. Now, a sequence of music meant you would physically play the drums, and then you would play the keys and play the bass.
Yeah.
And then it would play back for you what you had recorded.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the only drawback was that because KPLC was still KPLC, sometimes power would just go, and you had finished the
Your
whole
amazing
song.
creation is
Your
is gone.
idea went with KPLC.
Oh my goodness.
And then it used to save on floppy disks. So I would only be able to save 764 MB
Oh my
at
gosh.
any given time on a floppy disk.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the
Yes.
the
Limitations.
rudimentary tools that we were using. But I became so good at it because it's all I was doing that then one day a pal of mine, Jimmy Gadu, comes and says, hey, why don't you come this way and I have a commercial that some guy in a studio wants to do. So I go with my Atari, I had a Great Wall TV, that was my monitor,
Oh
I had my
gosh.
keyboard. Things were rough.
But you were in the
How-
cutting edge of tech to have an Atari in the 90s.
Trust me, I was.
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I was.
So you'd like, for a gig like that, you'd ship all your stuff.
I would have to
This
put
Great
it
Wall.
in a taxi and go with it and then pray to God. Sometimes that Atari was old school. You slap it is when it comes on. Boom. Literally, you have to jump start it.
Yeah.
And I get to the studio. This guy says, okay, we have a commercial we want you to do. Can you make the music? I say, well, plug me in. I give him my cables. I make the music and he The guy looks at me and says, "Where did you learn how to do that?" He had come from New York
Okay.
Institute of Technology,
Wow.
trained audio engineer.
Wow.
He said, if you were in the States right now,
Yeah.
Be killing.
you would be killing it.
Oh,
And this was like
gosh.
1993.
My gosh.
Wow.
He said, you would be absolutely killing the market, because what you're doing is what people are learning to do. He said, even with the degree I have, I don't have the knowledge
Yes,
you've
to
got.
do what you've done. Yeah.
And I did the commercial, got my first big paycheck, 3,500 bob. That was
Oh
a
my
lot of money
gosh,
for me.
a lot.
I was like, yes.
What would you do with
4,030
3.5
minutes.
then?
A lot, man. I would, I had expensive taste. I would walk into Abdullah Fazal and buy clothes.
Oh my gosh,
It was
I
really
think
a
that
very-
that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's,
that hasn't
that was,
changed.
well, nowadays I can afford the expensive taste. Back then, just
It was blowing money.
I was blowing money uselessly. But I would always reinvest in myself.
Okay.
So one of the things I did is I got employed as a music producer there.
Okay.
That was my first job. And I say this to inspire young guys. When you get your first job, sometimes you think you're going to ask for 100K a month, because that's justifiably, that's your living standard. And that's where you want to live. You want to pay rent, 30, 40,000 bob. You want to be able to transport yourself with an Uber back and forth.
Yeah.
You want to go to your favorite coffee house and enjoy coffee. And, you have your kachiku. You want to be taking on weekends to Vashas and everything. You want to save up some money, send your folks some money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think 100K is cool. For me at the time, it was 12K. 12K couldn't even pay my rent. So I negotiated a deal. And the deal was, you guys allow me to use the studio, make all this music. I will come up with ideas. If I can sell the ideas that I come up with,
Yeah.
you give me 40%
Wow.
of anything I bring up.
Wow.
So I had a towel in the shower and I wouldn't go home. I would literally sleep, live, eat, breathe studio. Because now this sound engineer was training me on sound engineering whilst I was producing music.
I see.
And I came up with a piece of music called Beat the Heat. And it was a very hot February. So I tell my boss, please take me down to Coca-Cola. I want to sell this to Coke. And my boss looks at me and says, bro,
What do you think you're? Who do you think you are?
You're pushing it.
Yeah.
I say, no, please. So I insisted. He got upset. He took me. And I didn't know what the policy was. If you came up with an idea and you went to Coke and said, I have an idea, you were not supposed to be turned back.
Oh, okay. That's
so
good.
Coke had an open door policy for ideas.
Okay.
Interesting.
So I say I want to meet the GM, to the receptionist, and she's like, this guy's kind of ballsy. So luckily I met the GM, and the GM says, okay, wow. So what do you do? I say, I'm a music producer, blah, blah, blah. I thought of you and I just made this piece of music. So he puts the cassette in his little boombox, presses play, and he stops the song at the 20th second, and he's turned red. He was a white guy. He's turned red. So I'm thinking, oh my God, not only have I lost this gig,
yes,
I'm going to get fired. By the time I get, by the time I get back to work, my boss is going to have my head on a stick.
Yes.
And he picks up his phone. He calls his agency and says, why do I have the commercial that I wanted you guys to produce for me, and I'm the one who's got it? What are you guys doing? And he hangs the phone up. Bam! He literally slams the phone. I think to myself, okay, that didn't go how I anticipated. But then he says to me, don't worry, by the time you guys get to your office, my agency will call you.
Wow.
The agency called us. To cut a long story short, it was a 400,000 gig. Boom.
This is in early 90s.
40%. I'm like, bro. So I worked for Coke, I worked for Fanta, I worked for Sprite, I worked for Stony, I worked for vodkas, I did so many commercials. And remember me, I was just creaming 40%.
Yes.
Now the 40%, what I was doing was, I wasn't balling. I was buying gear.
Okay. Okay. To make your production better.
To make my production better, and learning as much as there was no YouTube, no nothing. So you had to buy magazines to understand how does this equipment work? What does it do for you? I was the first guy to play with a sampler in Kenya.
Wow.
Nowadays you can sample using your laptop, even your phone. Bro, back in the day, you had to have a sampler. And the bit rate, if anybody knows what bit rate is, was about like 8-bit,
Per second.
really grungy.
Mm.
But I started sampling and started mucking about to that. That's how Kalamashaka came to life, Tafsiri. That's how Hearthstone came to life with Uhiki. And then I started to grow my legs. And by the time I left that job, I left with 80% of the studio gear.
Wow.
It was yours.
So it was mine.
Wow.
Me, I was a young guy. I was paying my rent 12 G's. The rest of the money was just, and then strategically what I would do is I always lived close to where I worked. I used to say, if I can see where I live, then I'm good. So I would walk home, walk to work. And then, you're young, you can eat pizza morning, day, noon, and night, and you can refresh yourself with a Coke. So that's a bit about how my transition from graphics to sound went. Yeah.
And I think a couple of questions. I think a few things I just find fascinating. So you seem like, of course, you're making a lot of revenue, a lot of money that time, and like you just poured all of it back into your music. So I'm just wondering, that time you were young, did you have this commitment to yourself to do your best work? Like, why did you think to even negotiate for a deal to pour it back into your own production? You could have, traveled, or like, just why did you just follow that line of thought?
A friend of mine, when I was starting out, said, you must always invest in yourself. Now, back in the day, like I told you, then I finished school, I went to Kenya Poly, and everybody was looking and saying, okay, this guy has a diploma from Kenya Poly, he's useless. Everybody who was looked upon nicely were the guys with degrees and stuff, and I didn't have a degree. So one day I remember having a conversation with myself, and I said, you either have a degree that opens doors for you, or you come from a family with a name that opens doors for you, or you create a name for yourself that'll open doors for you.
Okay.
But if you create a name for yourself that opens doors for you, you're going to have an arsenal of knowledge and equipment. So I said, okay, let me get the knowledge and the equipment and back my name up. So that when people hear the name, they identify it with something of value.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, you had multiple questions.
Yeah. So that was one question, and so you do this, you create this bunch of revenue, but then there's a quote here I saw when I was just reading about you, which was, music had not made you enough money after many years of producing hits. So maybe we can talk about the hits you produced. Like you pretty much like are a pioneer in music in Kenya as we know it. But then you ended up leaving that whole field and starting something in fashion. So like, just walk us through what happened during that time.
For me, music till this present day, I've got music I've not released.
Wow.
And I don't think I want to release it. For the simple reason that, yes, music didn't make me as much money as it should have. The royalty system in this country is effed up, to say it politically correct. And I never got a coin of royalty. If I had gotten a coin of royalty, I would have been a serious billionaire. Because you name it, I had done it. Okay. Afrofusion, I was number one. Roots music, I was number one. Hip hop, I was number one. R&B, which we later reinvented and called it Swa-R&B, which is Swahili R&B, I was number one. Across East Africa, I was working with the likes of P-Funk in TZ, who's a music producer, Master J, who's a music producer, producing hits there, working here in Kenya, producing hits here, working with people like Peter Samatimba in Uganda, and the early pioneers of Ugandan music, to a point where that is why the work I did in UG is the reason why you see a lot of early Ugandan musicians came to Kenya, because they thought, if we were in Kenya, we're going to get this quality. And Tanzanian music also started looking to us. If we were in Kenya, we're going to get this quality.
Yeah.
So people like P-Funk, who's a producer, and Master J started coming to me to ask me, so how do you do this? How do you do this? How are you guys creating your industry? And they use that blueprint to surpass us.
Wow.
By a mile.
Yeah.
Why I had to drop that passion was, at the end of the day, I consistently invested in myself to a point where I had the biggest studio in East Africa, possibly in Africa, outside of South Africa. But I didn't have the bank to show. Because I was busy investing in the gear as opposed to investing in land and property and real estate and, you know, stocks and what and blah, blah, blah. And then also I was a creative. So I didn't really know about me. I knew that just do stuff, money will follow, you know? So I wasn't thinking about how to invest so that this money enables me to live a cushioned life. And also in the hope that the copyright boards are going to do right by us who are in the music industry and pay royalties. Because royalties were being collected and have been collected, but the royalties didn't trickle down. And when I say they didn't trickle down, if you look at the music producers back in the 90s and the trajectory that music had taken, Kenyan music was on the rise, on the up and up. But as soon as these producers started having families and kids and babies and real bills, and now you can't have pizza morning, noon, night. You call yourself for a meeting and you just say, you know what, forget this, let me look for plan B. So I ended up, my plan B was going into television and broadcast and learning about the tech stuff. So the cameras, the gear, the editing. I was the first guy to have a laptop that could edit on the laptop. And I remember the TV station going like, you mean you can edit video on a laptop? And I'm like, yeah, it's what I do, you know? And we came up with a TV show that became the #1 television program in Kenya, which was called VP with a guy called Mongolo and Dij. After that, I made some stupid mistakes. I think I believed too much hype of myself.
But hey, that track record is really
I drank
good.
my own Kool-Aid. I ventured into working with politicians to create their audiovisual arsenal.
Okay.
For campaign.
And the bullets started to follow.
Oh gosh.
Literally. Yeah.
So okay, you'll tell us about that story. But what's very inspiring is actually how you're grounded to your roots and to Kenya. Because I'm thinking with all that talent, and it's not that you're not exposed. You lived at some point outside the country, but still you're using your talent to try and build up artists in Kenya, do stuff in Kenya. I'm curious why. Why didn't you just decide, let me bounce and go make back, outside?
I was offered a job opportunity by the late Hugh Masekela when he came in 97.
Oh, okay.
He came to my studio and he said to his manager at the time, we need to get this guy out of Kenya. Take him to South Africa now. Offer him whatever you need to offer him. And I said, with all due respect, no, this is my country. I'm going to live and die here. In hindsight, you know, those South African women now, they...
In hindsight, why did I say no? Why did I do that?
Instagram wasn't there. Maybe that's why I stayed. I don't know.
You didn't know enough.
I've always been really passionate about my country and building where nobody dare build, because the arts has always been overlooked. People say that they want to build the creative economy, but yet again, they come up with taxes for taxing cameras and lights and how are you building the economy by overly taxing
the
me
tools
for equipment that is way expensive. It doesn't make sense. So for me, I've always said, ground yourself at home and build and fight. God will supply what you need, Yes, I could have left, and I did leave in 2006 for the UK. And I had a really great run in the UK as a studio manager managing an animation studio of all things. But I got to work with Nike. I got to work with Puma, Adidas, Mayor of London. Huge projects, and I got to learn a lot. I wanted to learn about now not just film, but film and animation, and the next frontier, which was VOD, which was video on demand. YouTube had just launched. Everybody was saying it's a fad, it's going to die. I came back to some television stations and told them, if you're not careful, this thing is going to kill you. Because I want to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch.
Exactly.
Don't tell me to go home
Schedule
at X time
to
8:30
to watch
Why?
the show.
Because no, you then are dictating my time, and I want to dictate my time. And video on demand is going to kill that whole you being the controller of time, and it's giving me my time back. Yeah. And I was told, "Izo ni kelele, that's just noise. You're it's rubbish. You're not going to go anywhere with this idea." I said, wait and see. I told them, I'm glad to see even here we've got DSLRs and little digital cameras. And I told them, look, even for your news gathering and television production, you need to use these DSLRs. And they looked at it and said, a Steele's camera? Surely? Are you serious? I said, you need to understand what's happening under the hood and understand what you're broadcasting. You're broadcasting a fraction in terms of screen size, a fraction of what these cameras are capable of recording. And you don't want to migrate to this, then you're becoming a dinosaur. You're going to be obsolete in a very short span of time.
It's happening.
Well,
on our watch.
Yes, it is.
I know. Actually, listening to because it seems like you've been in the cutting edge of stuff from the Atari to music production, now to TV. I'm actually almost curious and scared at the same time what you think of where the future is going.
Where the future is going, that's a really good question. I think we're going to be oversaturated by apps and AI to a point that some of us are going to go back to very old school rudimentary ways because they give us comfort. So you see the old record player, the vinyl. It's not called vinyl. Generation really does my head in. Vinyl records are coming back.
Okay.
You see the record player coming back. You see a lot of those old school tools coming back because people feel like there's some comfort in that. So I feel we might be doing a take back to where we were. But also, if you look at news gathering, citizen journalism has become breaking news.
Yes, that's true. With Twitter.
And if you see any breaking news on any news channel, it's history.
It's not breaking news.
It's not breaking news.
Yes, that's true.
And it's history that
TikTok.
they borrowed from somebody's TikTok feed.
Yeah, it's true.
So a lot of people in media have to reevaluate their value and what they're doing. A lot of people in e-commerce need to reevaluate their value and how they're doing, creating their e-commerce platforms, both virtual and physical. It's just goes without saying, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's a very good segue into JokaJok. Yeah. So it's like a rebirth. Back to fashion.
Yes.
Yes, it's actually a rebirth. I enjoy making stuff, and when my late wife passed in 2017, I took a year or two off just to figure out some stuff. I didn't want to do music. I didn't want to do television. I didn't want to do animation. I was offered a job in Lagos to go and manage television station with Pretty Penny, and I had this 3-month-old child, and I thought, I don't want my child to come back with a Nigerian accent. No offense.
No offense to anyone.
I would like her to have the freedom of, I've lived in Lagos, it's a concrete jungle. Nairobi is not quite a concrete jungle, they're green spaces. I wanted her to enjoy home and be close to family. So I made a decision to create a brand Josiah, Qatar, Josiah, JokaJok, which is my name,
Nice.
her late mom's name, and her name.
Wow.
In memory of her mother, but also in legacy for the future, and also in legacy for the great JokaJok Nilots who moved from Egypt,
Yes.
who were pharaohs and kings and queens and came into East Africa and have been so suppressed through time and history, and their history is being whitewashed, literally, pardon the pun. And I said to myself, I need to create something that has such an impact that it changes the narrative. But also when we look forward, we have a product, a brand that is solidly African, not just Kenyan, but solidly African.
Yeah.
And it has its roots in everything African. So value add for me is very important. The raw material, the hides we use are African. The beadwork is done by the Maasai. Very intentionally. I could get beadwork done commercially in China and bring it here, and it would be so much cheaper. But I said, no, I want to put back money into the communities.
Yes.
So everything I do is very intentional. I've got, I hope I carried it. I've got a brand new thing that really just symbolizes. This symbolizes everything that we stand for.
Yes.
The beadwork feeds a family, not just a family, a whole community.
Okay.
Because it's done by the Maasai lady. The leather will feed the pastoralist. It'll feed the tanneries. It'll feed the designers. It'll feed the stitchers. It'll feed the cutters. So that's a whole community. And then I said, well, let's put something unique here.
Wow.
So this is a handmade fountain pen
Oh,
made
my
out
goodness.
of pure wood.
Okay.
Made right here in Kenya, made out of pure wood. I said, I don't want a ball pen. Let's go back. Let's make it classic.
Wow.
So it's a fountain pen.
Oh gosh.
Proper
You have to
fountain
put
pen.
ink.
Yes, you have to put the ink cartridge in there. And I said, look, how many people then is this? How many communities? You see a product, I see communities. You understand?
That's beautiful.
And for me, the question in my mind consistently is Ubuntu. What's the spirit of Ubuntu? Ubuntu is I am because you are. I only exist because you exist.
Yeah.
Void of your existence, I don't exist.
Yeah.
So I must make sure that your existence is as good as my existence. So every single action that I make has to be so intentional to a point where I'm thinking, okay, how can I help that community bring in a product that they've got, bring that community and put all these communities together into one product that then the consumer buys and says, I am supporting Africa, not an individual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
this is really, really powerful. And just looking at the brand you've been able to create, like it's so arty. So I suspect it's deeper. So when you're coming up with JokaJok, what informed why you chose like bags, why you chose leather, why you chose wood, why do you choose all this sort of like materials and this segment of fashion?
I think the material chooses you. You don't choose the material. In all honesty, leather chose me because of my story. Leather is like a phoenix that rises from the ashes. Literally, it's hides that nobody wants. Sometimes people will take the meat and bury the skins.
That's true.
Not knowing that these skins could then be taken, value added, create a product. So literally you're taking something from the earth, reinventing it and creating something brand new, the way the phoenix rises from the ashes. And my journey between 2017 to about till now has been the phoenix rising from the ashes, loss, changing career, reinventing self, all of that. So that's why leather chose me. And then leather is also a very timeless product.
Yeah.
So back in my leather studio, I've got a bag that is from 1970.
Wow. Okay.
And it's still in pristine condition.
Looks pristine.
Absolutely pristine. So that bag inspires me. And I think to myself, I want to make timeless bags like that, that keep telling stories.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So we saw, as we wrap up, I was reading, in months of launching JokaJok, you did 2 very high profile sales, and sort of like customers you felt like really believed in you. So how have you been able to grow from those 2 sales, probably 2017, 2018 to where you are now, and where do you want to take this beautiful brand?
Bro, I tell you this because you guys are also supporting a lot of people in the e-commerce platforms. How we grew the sales was we did not take social media for granted. JokaJok was birthed on social media.
Okay.
All the products you see are as a result of conversations on social media. So I take those people as real people with real thoughts that can be birthed in the real world and make impact. And when we started, I think the first 3 months we sold 3 bags, literally 3 bags, a bag a month. And I thought to myself, this is a really bad idea. I'm going to floss to
The
it.
worst idea.
Wow.
But then it started to pick slowly. And it's been literally a 5-year journey of gradual growth. You cannot say that it's spiked at any point. It's just gradual growth and sustenance. And as it grows gradually, online, you see the numbers grow.
Yes.
And then you see the demand for the items grow. And then you see the demand for more products grow. So you're growing organically based on an online footprint, a digital footprint. Now, a lot of people ignore that and they say, well, I'm going to create a brand. And then they create a brand. Maybe it's soap or it's a sweet. And then they say, okay, I really like this sweet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some photographs. Hey, Peter, can you come take some photographs for me? They take some photographs real quick. And then they post like 3 photographs on social media. They get like 2 likes and they give up.
Yeah. A story for many people.
Not knowing that consistency, there's magic in consistency. And also, instead of just taking booty shots, and you guys, especially you men, pressing the like button every time you see some chick on holiday. Bro. And sliding into DMs. I'd like you to think about this differently. Let's say you've got 10,000 followers on your social media platforms across the board. What's 1% of 10,000 followers?
100.
100.
That's 100. You've got 100 people who will buy whatever you're selling right there. Because 100 people are dedicated to following you. They are dedicated to your story. So let's say you're selling these sweets. Okay? Package the sweets. Sell them on a monthly basis to these 100 people. If you sold a pack of nice sweets or chocolates that you've made at home for, let's say, 2,000 bob per pack times 100, how much money is that?
My gosh, it's 2 million.
Now go and double tap again.
Wow. Wow.
Makes sense.
When you do that math, the 1% that want to buy whatever you've got, whether it's a pen, whether it's a what, and they want to grow with you, that 2 million then becomes 4 million, then becomes 6 million, then it becomes 8 million, then it becomes 10 million, then it becomes... And when you look at it through time, you have the possibility of building yourself, and not just yourself, a whole community.
Yes.
But smoke and mirrors, you're busy with what is so-and-so driving? What's the gossip of what happened? Well,
creating something.
Instead of creating something,
Deploy that energy.
When you're on social media, you are either a consumer of that content or you are a producer selling something.
You're the producer or you're the product.
Well, well, that's it.
That's interesting. I think what I really love is, the brand story. And I feel like that's one of the things that creates that followership in the first place for you to be able to sell something. Do you have anything to say around, because I feel like now everyone is trying to create that followership on social media, because without it, you can't sell. So it's like a chicken and egg.
Yeah.
What would you say about creating the followership in the first place?
Stay true to your story, because people are going to follow you because of your story and your journey. don't be repetitive about your journey, but let people see your ups and downs and your growth process, because that then will endear them to you. When I say endear, maybe it's a very 80s term. Let me look for more
Gen Z.
Term. Narrative. People will engage with this narrative more. Narrative is so stupid because it comes from the word narration. People get endeared to a story, and once they get endeared to a story and a person, and then they want to buy part of what this person stands for, and that drives the product and the product story and the product growth. People tend to ignore that because they're looking at their bottom line in terms of money, in terms of how am I gonna pay the bills and live my life and take so and so to Vasha's
vacation.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Sweet.
So as we wrap up, maybe you can just tell us where we can be able to find JokaJok and just what we can expect from this amazing brand this year.
And you're a wise man, so please drop.
I have no wisdom in me, bro.
Yes.
Don't
tell us why you look so young, maybe.
I try not to stress at all.
Okay.
I work from home. Remember, I told you I always like to work close. I work
where
from
you
home.
can see your office and you can see your house.
I take the Indian policy. I live upstairs. I work downstairs. Very simple. Very simple.
Simple life.
What you want today, I give you at a good price. I prefer to really keep my life as simple as possible. Don't stress. Don't eat junk food. My days of pizza are over. My days of Red Bull are over.
Oh my.
So I take a lot of organic stuff. I try and I don't even exercise, to be honest with you. I'm just, stress level, take it to 0. And focus on creating stuff. Focus on your purpose. When you wake up in the morning and you know that you're passionate about this journey, you'll go there. Where can you get the stuff? JokaJok.com or at JokaJok Luxury Leather on Instagram, or at JokaJok, or at Ted Josiah, TEDD, not 1D.
Nice.
Let me not play the pun on that one. But you can get it. You can get it on all those platforms, and reach out to us. We normally have a response time of about 5 minutes. We'll sell you your product. We're trying to reduce that response time to seconds using your platforms, if we can. If we can agree.
Powered by Chpter.
Yes,
exactly. And
Awesome.
what else did you ask, by the way?
Yeah, what's in the works for
future?
JokaJok?
I knew that was important.
Yeah.
So we are going to be in the US market.
Okay. Wow.
Our footprint is now expanding into the US market. We've already been supplying the US market with product, but we feel that now it's time to be housed in America and sell product there a lot more, because there's a lot of people who are vibrating with the story of Africa and the African Renaissance, and JokaJok gives them a way to identify, to have something that roots them in the motherland or introduces them to the motherland. So we are launching JokaJok US,
Okay.
which means we're launching JokaJok Global, which for me is scary, but uncharted territory is always
It's the
scary.
next wave of your journey.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Please do invite us.
Karibu